It's 7 o'clock. Good evening, Millbrook families. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to talk about phase 3 of our reentry plan, which includes full-time in-person learning for our students. First, I want to introduce a couple of people here on the panel. We have Assistant Superintendent Caroline Hernandez-Padala. We have Assistant Superintendent Brian Freed, Principal Rick Sipe, and Administrative Assistant Cheryl Sprague. So thank you for being here, and please feel free to join in and talk about whatever you want to add to or whatever you want to stress or support. So thank you for being here. So we want our Blazers back. From the moment the pandemic hit in March 2020, we had the goal of safely bringing back all of our Blazers full-time in person. And with changing guidance, low viral transmission, warmer weather, and vaccinations, we are able and ready to do this and provide it as an option for our families 5 days a week. Full-time remote is also an option as well for families who are not just ready to send their child back full-time. So we've developed a plan of action and a rollout for making this happen, seeing this come to fruition. First, I wanted to mention and point out, highlight, and thank our partners in planning. There were a number of people who contributed to developing this plan. Department of Health, the New York State Department of Health, the Department of Behavioral and Community Health and their teams, our district attorney and the local Department of Health, who reviewed our plans to make sure that we were in compliance and aligned with guidance. Our administrative team, leaders of our MTA, CSEA, facilities, schools, food services, transportation, technology, County Executive Marcus Molinaro and his team, our wonderful and powerful and supportive team of nurses, and to the families. You always have great ideas. You're always reaching out with tough questions, which we appreciate and encourage, and you're always completing those surveys, which we desperately need to inform our next steps and our plan. So thank you for everybody who collaborated and contributed to this plan. And this plan is based upon our commitment to bringing back all of our students, maximizing our students' educational experience, supporting the social emotional needs of our students, keeping our students safe and healthy, and the expressed interest of our community. And all of this equals the reopening of our schools while still providing a remote option for our families through June 2021. I'm not going to read through each slide with you. I'm going to give you an overview, and we're going to make sure that we post these slideshows as well as you're on YouTube right now. So we're recording everything so you can revert back to that, and we'll be posting these on our website. So currently, just as a reminder of all the mitigations that we have already in place to keep everybody in our buildings and our districts safe and healthy, we have the daily health screenings of students and staff. We continue to monitor COVID-like symptoms and adhering to return to school and work protocols. We're reminding and about hand washing and hand sanitizing. We're wearing our masks throughout the day. We're making sure that we're socially distanced and following those protocols. We respond to COVID-19 positive cases through isolation, contact tracing, disinfection, using UV light in our classrooms, and cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities at all times. We know that we're not going to eliminate COVID-19, but we know that the practices and the protocols that we have in place will help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And we will continue to use these measures when we're in full-time, full in person with our students. And layered upon all of those mitigations, we have also added a few more. Well, ventilation, if the weather is warm, we're opening our windows, we're bringing our students outside. We added surveillance testing, voluntary of staff and students. And this really helps keep our fingers on the pulse of the health and safety of our local environment, our school environment. We continue to test our athletes on a weekly basis. And then there's the COVID-19 vaccinations. We've been working closely with the local Department of Health and County Executive Molinaro. They've been providing us with an allotment of vaccinations, and we've been coordinating vaccinations scheduling with our staff members, and that's been ongoing. So we thank them for that partnership. A little bit more about ventilation. We have the MERV 11 filters, and they're replaced routinely, making sure that the air in our buildings is clean. Again, we're going to open our windows, make sure there's airflow throughout the buildings. If you're interested in hearing more about why ventilation is key to reopening schools, there's a great article in New York Times. We'll add a hyperlink to that so you can read it. Teachers can choose to take their students out to their classes outside if they choose to do so. Weather permitting, we'll have recess outside like we've been doing, and then we're going to encourage picnic style eating throughout all of our buildings. We've got lots of land, lots of grass, and so if the weather's fine, let's just go outside as much as we can. Classroom space. So our team has been working closely with the facilities team in walking their buildings and walking their classrooms and looking at space, looking at furniture, and seeing how can we socially distance our students to the most extent possible. And so based on the number of students in each room, and we have planned for everybody coming back. So with that, with the desks and tables and arranged to accommodate the maximum separation between students. In most cases, the separation will be 5.5 by 5.5 feet. The least would be 4.5 by 5 feet. And this again is with maximum participation, maximum people in the class, of the size of the class. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, so what does 5.5 and 5.5 look like, and 4.5 and 5 look like? So here are our classrooms. Here's Elm Drive, and here's Alden Place. And once we'll have another round of survey where we'll be asking you to commit to fully remote or full-time in person for the remainder of the year. So these desks, this configuration may change based on the survey results. We may be pulling desks out because families have decided that they're going to keep their children home for the rest of the year. And then we have middle school and high school. Thanks. So student schedules, we plan on keeping them the same, similar. They'll have your child will have the same teachers. We don't feel that we need any more change in this ever-changing world. So we want to make sure that the lessons that we planned are in place. We don't want to throw any more curveballs at people, at least lessen them as we move forward. I'm sorry, I'm like off on my slides. So as we are able to return to full-time in-person learning model, there will be no longer the hybrid model, no more AABB. Our plans continue to provide interaction between our in-person students and our remote students through the use of Google Hangout and Seesaw. So that means that right now, just to be clear, you're choosing between fully remote and in full-time in-person. There's none of that AABB anymore. We're extending our time to 5 days a week for students. And the most important piece, I think, or we think, is that we're all Blazers. So whether you're at home, fully remote, or you're here in person 5 days a week, we're all Blazers, we're all family, and we're all in it together. Social emotional, this slide is about, we're going to continue supporting our students and our families socially, emotionally. Our doors are wide open. Please continue to contact us if you're in need of something. We're here to assist everybody in any way that we can. Lunch and outside. So lunch, again, we're going to have outside lunch as much as we can. It's going to be picnic style. It's going to be fun and celebratory. And if the weather does not permit, we still will continue those spaces that we've carved out, such as classrooms, cafeterias, gyms, and all-purpose rooms for lunch. And outside, again, we want to be outside. We want to be out in the sunshine. So whether that's for recess, lunch, or class time, we're going to applaud and encourage that. Transportation. So families who choose to send their children back in full-time in-person learning will be asked on the survey, and we'll talk about that in a later slide, whether or not they'll be utilizing transportation. The data that you provide in that survey will determine the most advantageous seating plans on buses that allows for social distancing to the maximum extent possible. Mask wearing will be required at all times. There will be plenty of ventilation on the buses with the windows and the emergency hatch and will be open when weather permitting. It is possible that students who are not from the same household sit 2 to a seat. So we've spoken about a lot of things on a lot of different slides, and this just kind of encapsulates what it'll look like for your child here at school on a daily basis. So in the classroom, student desks will be placed as far apart as possible. In many cases, they'll be as far as 5.5 by 5.5 feet, and the least again would be by 4.5 by 5 feet.
Laura, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Do we want to just mention also that the CDC has also issued new guidance that says that 3 feet with masks is now acceptable? So this is even more than what the CDC is saying at this point in time.
Correct. I think we moved a slide, Brian. Thanks. All students and staff will continue to wear masks throughout the school day. Lunch will continue to take place again in both classrooms and large spaces, including outdoors. Remote learning will remain an option and be accomplished through Google Hangouts and Google Classroom, Seesaw. We will continue to have recess outdoors when possible, and students using bus transportation will be seated as far apart as possible and may require more than 1 student per seat. Mask wearing will be required at all times. Windows and hatch will be open for fresh air and ventilation. This slide is about how we monitor COVID in schools and the community. We just want you to know that we continue to do a lot of work to ensure the safety and health of our students and our staff. So not only do we have those mitigations, and then we layered more mitigations as we developed our plan, but we will continue monitoring attendance and the possible spread of COVID-19 virus within our schools. We're going to continue to communicate with you, our families, when we have a COVID positive case in our schools and the impact it has on our students, our staff, our classrooms, schools, and district. We're going to continue to examine community spread of the virus by checking the New York State website dashboard. We're going to continue weekly meetings with our nurses and administration. We're going to continue weekly meetings with Dutchess County superintendents, representatives from the county executive's office and the Department of Behavioral and Community Health to review positivity rates and changing guidance. As we have done since our opening, we must always be ready to pivot to another learning model in the event that we begin to see community spread or spread within our schools. And we've done that already. We had a bit of an outbreak most recently, and we had to pivot to remote temporarily until we determined that it was safe to return for our students and our staff. So you're probably like, enough talk already. What do I need to do? And when is it happening? So when is it happening? It's happening, well, we'll find out as I move through this slide. This year's spring break is scheduled from March 27th to April 5th. School will resume on Tuesday, April 6th. We added our Give Back Day, which is an unused snow day, to this break. So that's April 5th, and students will resume learning on April 6th. Now, April 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th will be full remote days for our students. This will allow us to maximize instructional time and at the same time protect the return of our in-person learners. So the rollout of this plan, April 12th, Elm and Alden, they're going to transition to full-time in-person for those families who have chosen this option. Then April 19th, middle school and high school will transition to full-time in-person for those families who have chosen this option. Also in our plan was an information meeting for you, for our parents. Exactly what we did for our reentry plan. So March 25th, we have our informational meetings. We just spent some time with our Spanish speaking families at 6 o'clock, and now our English speaking families, you tonight at 7 o'clock. Both of these will be recorded and posted on our website. Then this evening, after our informational sessions, we're going to launch the formal commitment survey to families, which is due March 29th at 5 o'clock. So this commitment survey is asking you to choose full-time in-person 5 days learning option or fully remote option for the remainder of this year. Once we launch it, we ask that you take your time, submit it, but have it in by March 29th at 5 o'clock. And again, this is a commitment for the remainder of the school year. Lastly, this is a team effort. We've been a team from the get-go, and we need to continue to do so. In order to sustain our full-time in-person program, it is important to follow the local and state health department guidelines outside of school. We know spring break is coming. We know that it's beautiful weather. We want to spend time with each other. We want to relax and have fun, but we can't relax on the protocols and procedures that will keep us safe and healthy. So please, especially practice those mask wearing practices, hand washing, social distancing to the extent possible, and avoid large gatherings. During a meeting, the commissioner of the DBCH stated, it's up to the community to continue mitigation efforts and not become complacent. I like to read this last paragraph because I really mean it. And I think the folks on this panel really mean it and believe it, that this is truly a community effort. And more than ever, we need to remember that we are stronger together. We are depending on everyone to keep our community and everyone in it safe and healthy. We have been Millbrook strong from the beginning. We have been Millbrook strong until now, and I know we're going to remain Millbrook strong moving forward. So let's stay strong, let's stay focused, let's stay safe, and have lots of fun. And now we have questions. And I know some folks submitted questions via the link in our website. And then I think maybe there might be a couple in the chat.
So the first question comes from Hilda Heinlein, and she says, and Steve as well, looking forward to kids returning full time. Only complaint is that my son is in class alone with no other students present. Will we know if other students will be present in the class with him?
Well, if we're going to use the preliminary survey results, yes, there will be other students in the class. There was a high percentage of families who have chosen, I don't remember the percentage, how many families said full-time in-person is where they want their children.
The next question comes from Dave Lavarnway, and that question is, will in-person students still be able to attend remotely if they have to be home for some reason, for example, illness or quarantine, etc.?
Yes, the important piece there is the illness and quarantine. So if there are students who are quarantining and they're ill and they still want to participate in their learning, we will absolutely make an accommodation for that.
The next question comes from Heather Lavarnway, and she asks, will elementary students keep their current teachers regardless of whether they choose in-person or remote learning?
Yes.
There's another question here from Heather Lavarnway. What positivity rate could cause the district to pivot back to a hybrid or fully remote option? And she just acknowledges that for reference, the county is currently at a 5.23 7-day rolling average.
So this is a tricky one, right? There's always a little gray in the guidance. And so it really depends on what's happening in our school, what's happening in our district, what's happening in the community. So locally, we have already made decisions when we have seen an uptick or a rise in COVID positive and pivoted to a remote in our middle school and high school most recently. Regionally, we would be contacted by the local Department of Health and work with them in developing next steps, whether it's a school closure, a district closure, and maybe a county closure, as has been happening. So it really depends on the circumstances and the situation of what we do.
And Liz Bonelli asks, suppose I choose to send my daughter and it turns out that hardly anyone in our classes is in our classes, including some teachers. Can I switch back to full remote?
Well, again, I think the preliminary survey really shows that there'll be students in the classroom. There'll be teachers in the classroom.
And Liz also asks, will it be mandatory for every staff member to be in person?
So in general, yes. teachers will be in person. There are a couple of extenuating circumstances due to personal matters that we can't discuss.
Tracy Fontanez asks, if my high schooler returns to in-person learning, can we expect more direct interaction with the teachers, or will they continue to teach through the Chromebooks with in-person students still being taught on screen?
A lot of it's dependent on the survey results and seeing where that lands. You know, we have to see how many students are remote and how many students are full-time. If there is a combination in the classrooms, then we're going to continue, teachers are going to continue having to balance both options within the same space and time.
Lutina Davis asks, if the elementary kids are expected to eat outside, can there be tables and chairs set up for them so they're not eating in the grass every day?
So we've looked into tables and they're not the best for sort of capacity and the number of students we have. So we actually were talking about it today because we know it's picnic style, and maybe suggesting and recommending that our students bring in a beach towel or a towel or a mat where we can socially distance them and they're not sitting directly on the grass.
A question from Brendan Fitzgerald. If a family chooses full-time in-person learning, are they permitted to choose remote learning on certain days?
The only way you can choose, and it's not even a choice, is if you have to quarantine or there's an illness. So there's no back and forth. You're either a fully remote student or a full-time in-person student, but we know that illness and quarantine may keep you at home. And if your child wants to participate in his or her learning, we can make that accommodation.
There's a question here from Kristen Martin. What does the district plan to do to fix the many problems caused by the lack of bus drivers? So Laura, if it's okay, I'll take this question. And Kristen, please expect a phone call from me because I'd like to understand a little bit more of what you're dealing with right now and what your family is going through and what some of your examples are, so we can indeed deal with some of the problems. So of late, we are getting some phone calls saying that there are some issues, maybe bus runs are being consolidated. So we're going to be having conversations and dealing with that issue. So thank you for raising that issue for us.
So I see there's a question about music and band and chorus. And so guidance hasn't changed on those. So we are going to keep to the guidelines and try to use outside as much as possible.
And is the high school planning to have in-person graduation ceremony?
Rick, you want to take that one?
Of course we are. Of course we are. So I don't know who the question came from, but we just recently put out a survey to our senior families asking for their priorities. So I'm still waiting for some additional feedback from the parents. But yes, we are ready. And as soon as we get all those results back, we'll start planning.
There's an additional question as well from Elaine Knapp. Now that students are returning, will they need to bring Chromebooks every day in K2? And I think that it's going to be necessary for them to bring their Chromebooks, primarily because this will not be full in person. Ideally, we would have all of our Blazers coming back full time, but I don't know that that's guaranteed. So there will still be students who are attending on screen, and therefore there may be some activities that require the Chromebooks.
And there is, it looks like right now, one final question from Tina Philhart. And that question is there going to be enough space on the school buses when all the students go back full time? And the answer to that is yes, there will be enough space, but please do be reminded that unlike before, while everybody needs to and will remain masked, there may be more than one person in a seat at a time.
And we will have windows open and the hatches open so that there's proper ventilation allowed. And there's a question also about limiting the amount of material that is in a child's book bag, as some of the book bags for the little ones are 15 pounds. That was also from Elaine Knapp. So thank you for that. And we certainly will give that feedback to, the appropriate personnel so that they can plan for that. And then there is an acknowledgement. Thank you for all of your hard work. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more questions? So again,
If we choose fully remote but decide to go 5 days, is that possible? And that's from Jessica Aiello.
we're asking folks to fully commit to either. We'll wait a couple seconds for some stragglers. I don't see the concert band rehearsing outside. Well, then they will be socially distanced inside.
One came in from Phil Ruger. What about high school classes that are 30 students?
So I could answer that. So in our walkthrough with our facilities director, Mr. Ragusa, we walked through the building because some classroom sizes are larger than others. So in one classroom only, we can accommodate 30 students, and that's in room 204. The other classrooms, we cannot accommodate that many. So for those select classes that have up to 30 students, they'll be held in room 204. And I don't know if I could clarify the concern about chorus and band, but at least at the high school, I could speak to it. We have our students that are already 12 feet socially distant. The problem is we haven't had too many students in person, but if more and more students do come back, we have the opportunity to be either inside or outside and take advantage of the nice weather if it permits, and be outside and conduct chorus and band. I hope that answers the question.
We have an additional food service question from Dawn Tompkins. How is food services affected? Will it still be delivered to remote students for the fourth quarter? And do we comment on this on the next survey?
Yes, it's on the next survey.
And yes, food will be still delivered to remote students if that's preferred. The USDA did expand the free lunch for everybody program, and we will continue to deliver. Two other questions here from Mark. When outside, are the kids required to wear masks the entire time? And it sounds like middle schoolers will not be using their lockers. Is that correct?
You are correct, no lockers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but students are wearing masks outside, but they're able to take breaks.
As long as they're not, fully socially distanced, or eating. If they're eating, they're going to be able to take the break to eat, but then they would have to put their masks on. And we limit talking and conversation while masks are off for safety reasons.
Looks like there's a question from Jean Lamoriello. How will lunch work in person?
So right now they're going to remain similar. They're in large spaces or classrooms, and then the additional, if it's nice outside, we're going to do picnic style.
And that will be the way it's been with the socially distanced. In a lot of cases, it's desks. In the elementary, in Alden, it's tables, but they are socially distanced there. They're able to take their masks off, but we are obviously encouraging them not to talk when they have their masks off for safety reasons, and then returning their masks when they're finished eating so that they can talk to one another.
I have to say, our students have been really great in throughout all of this. If you walk into a lunchroom, they are eating quietly and they immediately put up their mask when they're done. They're socially distanced in the hallways. They're respectful of the numbers in the bathroom. They've just been just wonderful. It's not, I'm sure it's difficult for the adults, but I'm sure it's super difficult for our students. And they've just been such heroes.
So again, we have an acknowledgement thanking us for our efforts, and we're happy to do it. We're happy to have all of our students back. So this is really great work. We also have a question from a panelist. Will there be staff specified for controlling distancing among students? And we do have some staff that are specified for like common areas. In the halls, we have some folks positioned, and there's also monitoring that's happening during lunch in other unstructured areas. And then we would have our teachers being the primary staff that's specified for controlling distancing within classrooms.
And I think it's also a community affair. When we're walking in the hallways, we're reminding each other, the adults, and we're reminding kids as well. Just, don't forget, put your mask all the way up. Can you separate a little bit? Wash your hands. So it's definitely a community effort.
There's another question here from an anonymous attendee. Will the middle school and the high school change classrooms, and how are the desks sanitized between classes? So yes, we will continue to change classrooms at the middle school and high school, no different from what we're currently doing. And in fact, the desks aren't sanitized in between classes. It's sanitizing hands and in and out. And there is sanitization done at the end of every day with both the UV light and approved germicides.
And there is a request from Jody Kazera. Is there any way to change the soap? It seems to be harsh, and the kiddos are getting very dry hands from it, in turn not wanting to wash.
So the answer to your question is yes, there is a way to change the soap for sure. We're gonna have to look and see if it's a widespread issue, and this is the first that we're hearing about it. So clearly, it's affecting at least one child, and that's enough. So please, we'll note that and see what we could do at least for one child.
And then there's a comment appreciating the transparency of this.
And Jody, I'll just say, if you could be in touch with whichever of your children you're talking about, and the principal of that building, that'll be helpful, and we could deal with it on a one-to-one basis. Slightly off topic, but please tell us about end of the year testing. And
So actually we have a meeting tomorrow which will determine end of the year testing for 3 through 8. Our New York State tests have some flexibility, so our plan will be completed tomorrow after a meeting regarding that exact topic. In terms of the high school, there will be the 4 required regions that will be administered, and there'll be more information specifically coming out from there, but at this time they are only requiring 4 of the Regents exams to be administered. And there was a meeting today about end of the year testing in terms of Regents exams and finals. And I know that the high school staff has been having some conversations about that. I don't know if they're finalized with those conversations yet, but there will be information that's coming out from both the middle school and the high school about our typical Regents exam schedule and exam schedule at the end of the year. We appreciate all that the entire Millbrook Central School District is doing for our kids. Thank you for the energy and compassion, and thank you for that acknowledgement. That's from Dawn Thompson. Dawn, I can't say the last name, I apologize. What is the cleaning process at the middle school for lunch? That's from, Dawn Hammond, so thank you for that, Dawn. What is the cleaning process at the middle school for lunch? Brian, did you want to speak about the middle school lunch cleaning process?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking to unmute and I was already unmuted. That's it.
You're
That
so
might
used
be
to
a
us telling you to unmute.
That's right. Yeah, so we'll go through with the disinfectant after each lunch for everything that's in the lunch period, in the lunchrooms.
And then for Nicole McMorris, although we're looking forward to the warmer weather, there will come a time when it will be too warm in classrooms and on the bus for kids and staff in masks. Has there been discussion about addressing this? And I think that's where we'll be really looking to rely on those mask breaks. If students can be taken outside, sit in the shaded area, and maybe have some break time from their masks. Unfortunately, you know, we have to prioritize the limiting the spread of infection at this time. So masks are going to be required for the near future, and we're going to have to do what we can to try and keep ventilation and airflow going in those areas. I don't see anything else coming in.
No. So thank you. We'll close. We appreciate your really good questions and continue asking them. They challenge us. We welcome them. It makes us only stronger leaders for your children. I want to say that I'm excited to see more of our students. I love seeing the students we see on a daily basis now, but I often feel that I've been robbed of being able to meet all of our students and our families because I only was in person with everybody for 2.5 months. So since March 2020, it's been sort of sparse with kids. The hallways have been lively, but not as lively as I remember. So I'm looking forward to seeing their bright faces and their good energy and having more communication and experiences like this with families and parents. So I want to wish you a very healthy, happy, and fun spring. Make sure you're practicing your protocols, wearing your mask, washing your hands, sanitizing, avoiding large gatherings and social distancing to whatever extent you can. And know that, again, we are here, our doors are open. You've been emailing us, so continue to do so, calling us, continue to do so. We're new to this as well, and we're reading guidelines and trying to make sense of this ever-changing world. So I think, again, we are Millbrook Strong, and we need you as partners to ensure that we are successful for our kids so that our kids are successful. So thank you for being here this evening and continuing your kind words and support are most appreciated. Happy spring break and happy Easter to you as well, Jen Carnecchia.